Spell it, just in case.
That's a good idea.
See, I do a lot of interviews. That's why I asked.
You know how it goes. Okay, yes. All right.
Yes.
All right, Miss Barbara. We're ready.
Barbara, Barbara, Keller, Keller. But I'm gonna say it again. Barbara Lacen Keller. Barbara, Barbara, Lacen, Lacen, Keller, Keller.
And let us know where and when you were born.
Okay, I was born in New Orleans, Louisiana. I am 71 years old. May 1st, 1946 to be exact.
Okay. And we are conducting this interview at New Orleans City Hall. And if you could you say just a few words about your position here, but we might come back to
Okay,
more
sure.
later.
Sure, I work for the New Orleans City Council. In fact, I work for the Council at Large, Stacy Head, where I serve as her Director of Constituent Services.
Okay, great. And as we were talking a little bit before we turned the camera on, that I listened to a recorded panel discussion from Jazz Fest in 1994.
Wow, that's a long time.
A long time. And you were a member of those two panels, these African stage panels. And in those conversations, you mentioned that, at least at that time, that you had been documenting the history of
Sure.
the culture here. And I wonder if you could just tell me a little bit about that.
Right. Well, let me share with you a brief history about who I am. As I said, I was born in New Orleans, but the uniqueness of my life, and I'm so excited that I am truly what we call a culture bearer. I come from a family, mother and father. Well, my mother's side was Mardi Gras Indians, Social Aid and Pleasure Club. In fact, my mother is, to knowledge, my mother is the only existing Mardi Gras Indian spy girl. And she's 89 years old and she's still living, and they cannot find any other female or know of any other female that served as a spy girl with the Mardi Gras Indians. And I also was a Mardi Gras Indian. I was what they call a little queen. I was the little queen, and I started that at the age of 3 or 4 with my mother's family. And my father's family was musicians. They were musicians and dancers. I had an uncle, he was a world-renowned saxophone player. My grandfather was a musician. So I come from a very strong culture background of music, Mardi Gras Indians, and second liners. My mother was a second liner. As you can see, I'm deeply rooted in the culture.
Some of the names of these family members that you mentioned?
Oh, sure. My mother, who's the only existing that they know of spy girl, her name is Augustine Germaine Lewis. She's 89 years old. My grandfather's name was Lawrence Rankins, and not coincidental, but I know everybody familiar with the Andrews family. Well, the Andrews family, grandfather, Mr. Noon, and my grandfather, Lawrence Rankin Sr., were musicians together, where they made their instruments and they would play in the French Quarter. They would dress like women and actually play in the clubs in the French Quarters. And my uncle, his name was Leroy Batman Rankins, and he was a world-renowned saxophonist. He played with the famous band Roy Brown, and he also played with Mr. Dookie Chase, who transitioned not long ago. So those are some of the people. And I was married to a musician. I was married to Anthony Lacen, better known as Tuba Fat. So as you see, I am deeply rounded in the culture all the way around: music, dance, Mardi Gras Indians, and the like.
And was there one particular Mardi Gras Indian tribe that your mother's family was?
Yes, in fact, my family was the Mardi Gras tribe called the Cheyennes. There is a group now, but that's not the same tribe. Our tribe, the Cheyennes, it consists of my uncle, my mother, 2 of my uncles, my mother, another family called the Shake Snyders. Most of them, the chief was Little Boy Shake Snyder. The big queen was Fanny Shake Snyder, his sister. So it was the Germains and the Shake Snyders who started the Cheyenne tribe. But there is a tribe now, but that is not the same tribe that was created. We're talking about in the 40s, the 1940s.
Okay. Okay. And is that is that tribe still around, or is because everyone?
No, it's another. There is a Cheyenne tribe, but I don't know of any of them to be descendants of the original tribe
I see.
that I know of.
Okay.
Yes.
And then did you mention that your mother was involved in social aid and pleasure clubs?
Yes, she was involved in Associated Pleasure Club. She was involved in a club called the Jolly Bunch. The Jolly Bunch was a strong club, and they had women, Lady Jolly Bunch. But in those days, and as we get into the interview, we'll talk about how some changes has revolved around women and their role in social aid and pleasure clubs.
And about what years would your mother have been involved with the Jolly Bunch?
She was involved in the Jolly Bunch in the 50s,
Okay.
somewhere in the 50s. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to my next question, is that yourself and before I ask that, tell me about you and the different, your role in the culture, and I guess maybe starting by different societies that you belong to. You said as a child, you masked as a queen.
Indian, yes, and I was also in the Lady Jolly Bunch. I mean, in fact, I was its youngest member at the time that I was in the organization, and then later, I for some reason, I just drift away from it, and I had my family, whatever. Then, I started the female group of the Money Wasters. I am one of the founders of the Lady Money Wasters. That's out of Treme. And then I migrated uptown, and after I migrated uptown, I joined a club called the Original New Orleans Ladies Buck Jumpers. And they were like a year old when I joined. And I
about
joined.
1985?
Yes, 85, 86 I joined the group. They were organized in 84, and I joined in 85, 86 I joined the club.
And so it was before that you organized the lady division of the Money Wasters?
Yes, it was before that. In fact, I organized the Lady Money Wasters around 80, 81.
Okay. Great.
Yes.
And so I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the different kinds of voluntary societies, or sometimes they're called secret societies, or organizations. You mentioned several different ones that yourself and your members of your family have.
Well, to be honest with you, in the African American community, there are different societies. You have your Greek societies, you have your Mason societies, you have your social aid, you have your benevolent societies. They are various, and I've been blessed to be well-rounded. Only society I've never been a part of is the Eastern Star, but I am a very proud member of a Greek society, a Sigma Gamma Rho sorority. Yes, yes, I am. Yes, I am. And also, I am. Because a lot of people have the misconception that when it comes to social aid and pleasure club, that is a certain class of people, but that is further than the truth. Because at one time, the culture was known as a backstreet culture. It was known as a culture of a certain class, of a somewhat of a degrading, and at some point, and even till today, there are some people within the African American community shun and look down at the social aid and pleasure. But it comes from all walks. People come from all walks of life. Educated people, common laborers, people from all walks of life, and it is not, and as people become more knowledgeable of its culture, because it is something that derived from the motherland, Africa. Because we started through the churches and the benevolent societies, and the benevolence is basically that taking care of your own. And when they say social aid and pleasure club, what they mean by that is pleasure, but the aid was taking care of each other, because at one time it wasn't acceptable, or it wasn't to be that we would have insurance, and we had to take care of our own with nickels and dimes or however, and those things were created where through the church or whatever, they would through the benevolent society, they would take care of the sick and the dead. So that's basically, so it is various organizations within the African American community, especially in New Orleans, you know, where we have, and they all have their own uniqueness of how they serve. And in which they serve, you know, and they have government rules that they must abide by. And it must also have a standard and a quality in representing those organizations. And I think that's what it is, that people have a choice what they choose to be involved in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I've been, you know, looking back in old newspapers, just trying to get a sense. I mean, we know these clubs have been around for a long time, but you know, I just did some of these newspapers in the Louisiana Weekly, for example, in the 1920s. You know, there's listings for the activities,
right?
Embroidery and pleasure clubs, and you know, all kind of mutual aid societies,
right?
And travel and leisure clubs,
right?
And going on excursions, just a whole variety.
Well, because as also, and I forgot to mention, even with the Mardi Gras culture and the Mardi Gras and the masking, you know, there were organizations, the Young Men Olympia, I'm sorry, not the Young Men, Young Men Illinois, and there are some other ones where they would have the Mardi Gras balls and the debutantes and things, the Zulu organization, and I am proud to say that I am one of the members of Mr. Crew Fatel, and that is the first predominantly African American female Mardi Gras crew. We're celebrating our 5th year coming up in 18, and yes, and that is a group, like I said, predominantly African American, but we're open to anyone. But we're predominantly 600 women strong, and that's we're a Mardi Gras parade group, and also, you know, these different organizations, like those of us, like the Buck Jumpers, the original New Orleans Lady Buck Jumpers, after 20 years, there were some of us who decided that our season has changed and we did not want to participate in parade anymore. So what we did, we started a travel club. So we have the Buck Jumpers Travel Club. And every year, 16 ladies, we get together and we travel. We go to various parts of the world, not just the country, where we travel. So it is a spin-off. So what you're saying about the different societies, how you go from one to another, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, right. And you know, I've heard some people say today that the clubs have this kind of, a lot of clubs might have a focus on putting together a parade as like their #1 focus.
Right.
But that historically wasn't always the case, right? That the parade was like a celebration of this group of people that got together for other purposes.
Right. See, because what happens is that, well, when it comes to social aid and pleasure clubs, because not all social aid and pleasure clubs parade, okay? Right. Some of them, because I know of a club called the Calendar Girls. They didn't have a parade, but they had a social aid and pleasure club. So that's why some people start tagging on marching to their name, social aid pleasure marching clubs, because most social aid and pleasure club, the main thing is going towards the cultivating activity, the culminating, activity is the parade, which is a huge responsibility to plan a parade. It takes time to plan a parade. It's not just when people just get together one Sunday, we're gonna do it this Sunday and let's go. Well, in New Orleans, at any time you can have a parade, a second line. All you gotta do is have a permit in the band and you can do it for anything. But when you say a parade, then it takes time to plan that, because you gotta plan you gotta do your clothes, your colors and your clothes, and some people have a theme, and you gotta get your decorations, your streamers and your fans, and it takes time to put all that together.
And to raise the money for it.
And not only that, I'm going to tell you now, financially, because it is, I say, now somebody could show me where it's changed, it is, to me, it's the only self-sufficient culture that exists. It is self-sufficient. You have to take care of it. Now, over the years, there have been some different funders that have been able to contribute but they don't contribute to total cost. Now, for instance, I am the founder and the organizer of the Associated Pleasure Task Force. I found the Associated Pleasure Task Force. The original name was the New Orleans Cultural Tradition Task Force. And then we started meeting, and the suggestions of some people, Fred Johnson and some other people, that we changed the name to Associated Pleasure Task Force. And you may not believe it, coincidental, one of the main things that when I organized this task force was to look at some conditions at the Jazz and Heritage Festival, at the fest. And those conditions were, and I felt that as a woman, I felt that they were degrading the conditions in which we had to change clothes. I felt was not appropriate, and I felt that those were some of the things we need to address. I also felt there were some other things within the city that needed to be addressed. So, and glad to say, and I must commend Quinn Davis and his staff, because they were willing to listen.
And this, when you say the conditions of changing clothes, you mean when the clubs would go to parade on the grounds during jazz?
Right, when they go to parade on the ground, they would have this large tent, and this large tent had like a curtain, and it was draw the curtain, and the men on one side and the women on the other side, where the other acts had trailers. They had a bathroom, they had trailers, it was air conditioned, but that wasn't for the clubs, it wasn't doing that. And I felt that wasn't right, because I felt that as we do a Jazz and Heritage Festival, and we showcase and spotlight different cultures, that was one of the main cultures, because it is, and it was a part of what the fest was about. So I did not feel that those conditions was conducive, and it was not right to women. And Norman Dixon Sr., he's gone on to transition, and he was working with the Jazz and Heritage and Associated Pleasure Clubs. And Greg, I think it was Greg Stanford, and we had a conversation. We said, and we met, and we talked about it, and I shared that. And I explained to him how I felt and how it shouldn't be, and I left him with one thing. I said, now just think about it. What if it's your wife or your daughter? Just think about it. Would you want that? And they gave that some thought. And what happened? It changed. It wasn't where we had to demonstrate, and boy, it wasn't where we, but they listened and they saw. So now when you go, when the clubs go to the Jazz and Heritage, they have trailers now, air conditions with bathrooms, where they're treated in the same way as all the other acts, because they are that, and they need to be treated. And I am proud to say that I am a member of the Jazz and Heritage Advisory Board now, and over the years, because I worked for the Jazz Fest in the kids area for quite some time. So I know how important it is, and I know how important it was for them to make sure that everyone, whatever culture, that is treated in a way that everyone can appreciate. That when the people come, they appreciate what they're getting and seeing. So let's look at everybody as the same. So that that worked out. Yeah. And also with the task force, I was able to sit with the city, with Joe Valentine. He's no longer with us, he's retired. He's responsible for police escorts and parades. And where we were able to sit down, and I also felt that three things I wanted to address. One was the conditions at the Jazz Fest. One was to come up with a structure for parades that just what the elements are, how the elements are defined, what you can and cannot have. And the other one was to create an ordinance for the city that the clubs would have some type of protection. So what happens is that what happened in sitting, we were able to sit down and define what elements were. That if you have so many cars, and a float will account for so many cars. So, and also have a protection where, because at one time, clubs, like I have a club, I'm in a club for 30 years. You in a club, you get mad with me, you leave and you start your club. But you will run and put your money and take my date. that wasn't fair. So we also looked at a way to protect those clubs that they would keep their same Sunday. So traditionally, the first Sunday in August would be your Sunday. The first Sunday, next Sunday in August would be my Sunday, but it would protect you in a way that people didn't have to just come, well, I got my money, first come, first serve. We were able to establish that doesn't have to give the club a sense of protection. Now, if you still keep your date. Now, if you don't parade within a certain amount of years, I think 2 or 3 years, then you lose your date. Then somebody else can get it. But it did protect you because before that you had none. So there was so those things needed to really be taken care of. Now, for the ordinance concerned, we never were able to get that together. And to be honest with you, I somewhat pulled away from the task force. And the reason why I pulled away from the task force, and I have no problem saying on tape or otherwise, because I had gotten to the point that I wanted to serve more as a resource than the leader per se. And also, there were some elements within the task force that wasn't willing to work in a compromising way that everyone would basically be protected and get what they want. Because sometimes it all depends on at the table to determine the outcome. And not all the time the same tactics will get you the results that you really, really need in what you're doing. So I felt it was best, because I did not like the direction, and I decided to step away. I am a person that I'm not about trying to get you to understand me, but if I feel that you're not willing, I'll eliminate myself, because you have the right. So I just eliminate myself, and that's what I did. And what has happened over time, that a lot of clubs that were in the task force are no longer in the task force. Now, why they're not, you have to ask them that question. I wouldn't know. But, I am also a strong believer that as we sit here and we talk, no matter what it is, you can't rewrite history. No matter what's done, how it's done, what will come of it, you can't rewrite it. It is what it is, And as I sit here, and I need you to understand that I am a culture bearer. I am serious about my culture. I love my culture. It's a part of me. So much that I have instilled in my family, my children and my grandchildren, how important they are. And I find that a lot of people take it so lightly because I don't think they understand the importance of it. And that's also, and another thing, what I wanted to do in the task force was to establish a curriculum within our school system in New Orleans where part of the curriculum would be part of the history, social history, where everyone would the children would get the opportunity to understand, because what's happening is now the culture will become extinct if we do not educate and encourage the children to be a part of it. It will become extinct, and it will perish for the lack of the knowledge, because a lot of people think that it's just about any given Sunday where people are not parading up and down the street with these green bottles shaking up and down. It's not that. It's deeper than that. It is and I think I really wanted to be a part of the curriculum where people will have a better understanding. And a lot of people define a second line. I define it as a moving party. It is a party that's continuously to move. It moves. It's a party. It's moving. People are gathering and they're not standing still. They're moving. It's a moving party, and it is a party where it should be open, accessible to any and everyone, no matter how old, how young, where you come from, So,
Two follow-up questions I wanted to ask on some of the things you just mentioned. I was curious just about the years of when you were talking about the work with the task force. What year do you remember? What year you established it? About
Yes.
and what year you transitioned out of it?
I started in, when was Katrina? Katrina was 04, right?
05.
05. I think I started the task force somewhere between 02 and 03, somewhere up in there. I have a lot of my stuff at home. I have to look at it. It was before Katrina. It was like before Katrina. It had, wait, let's see. Because I called the first meeting at Ashe Culture Arts Center. What I did, I gave out these little flyers at the second line parade telling everybody to come, the clubs to come. I was just putting together. Some people thought I was crazy. But Norman Dixon Sr., who's gone on to heaven, transition to glory, he said I was crazy. Fool around, we ain't gonna have nothing fooling with your ass. We ain't gonna have nothing, but it was
crazy. You saw a need.
I saw a need. Yeah. I saw a need. So it had to be somewhere between one, because Katrina coming over, between 1 and 3. I organized. And I stepped away when Katrina was 05, and I stepped away 06. And one of the reasons why I stepped away, because we had this meeting, and they wanted to have with Martin Luther King, and also I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Martin Luther King Federal Holiday Commission for the City of New Orleans. The mayor of the city serves as chair, and they appoint community people as co-chairs, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the Martin Luther King Federal Holiday Commission. So we're planning to have this big second line for Martin Luther King
in 2006.
So I suggest that we not have a second line. I suggest to show a sense of solidarity that all the clubs will come together and we would have a march with our music to honor Dr. King. And all right, we would have a march to honor Dr. King with no music. Some of the people felt that no, we need to have a second line with bands and all that stuff. And to be honest with you, I felt that it would be, we're coming out of with something, but strength, sometimes silence is so strength, it gives such a message, that we would all walk in solidarity, no music, all clubs in solidarity. Just for Dr. King and also for ourselves to let them know that our culture is resilient and we shall come back. But some passions within the task force felt no, that we had this big second line. And what they did, they had this big old second line. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't participate. I was on the sideline, I watched it pass. And I felt that and people came from all over the country, came back for the second line. And at the end of the second line, there was a horrible shooting. And I just felt that, and that gave me more fuel that I need to step back, because it wasn't, because I really felt that our culture, it is so significant that we need to have a stance, and a stance should be more than just what people think we about as a parade.
Because the culture is much deeper than a parade.
That's right, and I felt that will demonstrate and show the world that yes, we're about that. We're a party. We know how to bring it. We're gonna do the thing. But today is about a sense of solidarity. It's about being resilient, and also in honoring Dr. King at the same time. But some people didn't feel that.
I want to ask you something. This might not be a fair question. Do you feel that there would have been it would have been less likely that shooting would have occurred if it had been a march instead of a second line?
Yes, I feel it would have been. It wouldn't have occurred. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. And not only that, I had suggested that we would disband the march at the Martin Luther King statue. And one thing I can say that, all depend on the tone will determine the outcome. That's just like we talk about crime in the city. We will never be Mayberry. We'll never have a city that's totally without crime. Trust me, I'm not living in a fantasy. We're gonna always have murders, we'll have drugs, we'll have all that. Okay? But I notice certain things you do will attract certain things. And I said, we'll start downtown. We'll march uptown with no music. All the clubs together, no music, just march together. And we'll come with red leaf at Dr. King's statue. And that's it. But what happens is that it is so sad because social aids and pleasure clubs they've been treated so unfair, so unjust, where they been given the responsibility of things that happen, but it's not their fault because it's not the social aid and pleasure club that caused the problem. They're not the one, but people use that as an opportunity to come and catch people. Oh, there he is, and they cared less. They care less, and they drinking, having a good time, and the music, and there it goes. So I'm saying is that, not that, don't get me wrong, not that the person you see, but no, man, no. And 9 times out of 10, man, I don't want to be bothered with that. I ain't going to that. I'm just saying. Sure. I'm just saying. I'm not saying I'm totally right, but that's only my opinion.
Right. And I wonder too, on the flip side of that, do you think that the numbers of people would have, if it had been a march, that the numbers of people would have attended, it would have been as many people?
No, I don't think it would, and it might have would have, because it all depends on how you spell it. It all depends on the message that you send, what we're doing. This is our culture, this is our, because you got to understand, the Social Aid and Pleasure Club and the culture is a family. We are connected, we are connected with family, because what Social Aid and Pleasure Club also, what it does, it teaches you a sense of togetherness, of brother and a sisterhood, entrepreneurs, artists and craftsmen, and it teaches you so much. So we're like a family. We, Social Aid and Pleasure Club, members be together more than they be, family. And then it's where everybody participates, mothers and fathers and grandparents and children and cousins, and so it all depends, so and I think the Social Aid and Pleasure, our culture has an obligation to have an image of to be diverse in so many other ways. Yeah, we have a second line, yeah, we do this, but we also do this. We stand for this. And while I was in the Buck Jumpers, I was the PR person. I organized our first back to school picnic. I was Buck Jumpers was the first ones to do that. The Lady Buck Jumpers, where we did the haircuts and the hair braids, and it wasn't just about a come and get school supply. It was a family thing, and the other clubs started doing the same thing, And at one time in the 80s, to be honest with you, in the 80s, there was some clubs used to get together and have a picnic. The clubs used to get together and have a picnic, like the Singing Boosters, the Buck Jumpers. It was a lot of clubs uptown, and they would get together and we'd have a family and fun day, have games and activities, and it was a wonderful thing, So I'm saying is that the culture has so much within its elements that it's not just about a parade, so and that's what I myself as an elder and as a culture bearer, that's what I really want the world and people to see, that we stand for something. We're not just about a parade. There are so many other elements to what we do. We have a sense of responsibility, and
If you had to put words to that thing that it is you stand for, like we stand for, fill in the blank, what would those things be in your words?
Well, we stand for to uphold and have an image and a responsibility that we are, the culture is ours, it's uniquely ours. It is the only culture that really belongs to us. And in that, the culture of living and having a strong family come from that. Also of giving back. Also of, it stands for, also of training and educating. So that's what I want it to be.
Yeah. Since you brought up the 80s, I wondered if you would take us back there a little bit to that, that moment in the late 1970s, early 1980s. From what I've been told, and what I've read and heard, that there was kind of a moment, I don't know, maybe a little before that in the 60s, maybe early 70s, where the social ed and pleasure clubs, at least in marching, had kind of dwindled. Brass band music had kind of dwindled.
Well, first of all, in the 60s, in the 60s, you didn't have that many social ed and pleasure clubs. You didn't have that many.
Right.
You just didn't have that many. You had and I'm gonna be honest with you, other than the Young Men Olympia, I think, you might have Uptown, you may have it, I could be wrong, I stand to be corrected. I tell people that. When I do these interviews or whatever, I stand to be corrected. I think Uptown, you had in the 60s and the 50s, you had the Young Men Olympia Benevolent Society. You had, I think, the Valley of the Silent Men, I think, I'm not sure. Downtown, you may have had the Trimmy High Steppers or Six Wards High, something like that. I don't think you had any in the Ninth Ward. You really didn't have the Jolly Bunch. The Jolly Bunch just was around this way. But you really didn't have that many clubs. And what happened, it didn't really start revolving till like in the 70s. That's when the clubs started bursting out. Then you started with the Scene Boosters and the Calliope Steppers, the Money Wasters, and all those people. Then the Ninth Ward started. Then you and you didn't have that many lady clubs because most of the lady clubs came from within the men clubs. And also with the Jolly Bunch, I remember as a child, because my mother was a part of it, the ladies, it wasn't permissible for a lady to be on the street dancing. The ladies sat on the back of the cars looking pretty in these beautiful gowns, and these cars were decorated and stuff like that. The ladies didn't dance. Now, to my knowledge, and I stand to be corrected again, there was a group called the Lady Zulu, but they wasn't affiliated with the Zulu. That's right. A whole different thing. And they paraded uptown, but they were like, they wore black skirts and white blouses. They was like a benevolent, okay. But they didn't shake up and down, they'd do their little march or whatever, and that was that. But what happened when the Scene Boosters came on the set?
And that would have been late 70s, early 80s?
The late 70s. Okay. No, we still in the 70s. Okay. We're still in the 70s. Okay. We like 70, what's this? 76, 70. We're going to say like 73, 74, somewhere up in there. We're going to go like, I'm going to call somebody before you leave. I think like 73, 74, something like, because I started the Lady Bunch because I got married, and I married Tuba in 80, must have been 79, and I started the Money Wasters. So I'm gonna say the Fun Lovers started like 75, somewhere up in there. I might be wrong. And this group, the Scene Boosters, had a lady group called the Fun Lovers.
Oh, the Fun Lovers was a lady group attached to Scene Boosters.
That's right,
okay.
The Fun Lovers.
Okay.
That was the D and all them. And to my knowledge, I stand to be corrected, outside of the Lady Zulu, there wasn't really a second line club. Okay, they were the first ones I knew on the street to second line, to start second line, and the Fun Lovers from the Boosters. Then you had and the Calliope Steppers, they started a ladies group. I forgot the name of their group. Jet Setters. Okay, Miss Naomi just died not long ago. The Lady Money Wasters, then we started the Lady Money Wasters. But the Lady Money Wasters, we were the first lady club that paraded under their own banner. The first female club to have our own parade. We didn't parade, we paraded on our own banner. We had our own parade. We wasn't attached to the men.
Oh, so a separate day.
A separate day, separate permit, everything. Wow. We started uptown and we came downtown. See, at one time, you could parade from sun up to sundown. But years ago, it was the Jolly Bunch, because I remember as a child. But they later, with the restrictions of police, they defined that if you're downtown, you stay downtown. But see, now you can come, they let you do both now, depending on time. But the uptown club stayed uptown, downtown club. But for 1 year, the Money Wasters 1 year, because you know the clubs is clean rival. It's like a football team. They purposely started uptown and boosted territory and came downtown. They did that on purpose. But customary, the clubs stayed downtown, uptown stayed uptown, you know. So, and then later some other clubs came on the scene where they started at Armstrong Park and came downtown, you know. So as time passed, and what it really started busting out in the 80s, like the Bug Jumpers started in 1984. And it started back in Gertown, Holly Grove, Gertown. It started in 84, and the men started the club first, and then the men went and got some ladies together and they organized the ladies. Then from there, a lot of other clubs started happening. But in the early 60s, it wasn't that many. The early 70s wasn't that many. They really started popping up in the 80s. That's when they started.
Why do you think that happened?
Well, various reasons. One, I think because a lot, like I was telling you about that stuff about folks got mad and got out and started their own group. Because see, a lot of clubs spinned off from other clubs. You know, like we all in the club together, you get mad, you leave, you start your club. I get mad, I start my club. And that's what they did. A lot of clubs spinned off where members got from one club and started another club. And now there are so many clubs, there's not enough Sundays. At one time, they had Sundays to spare, but now, and that was also one of the reasons why the task force, I felt it was important that these clubs that had been existing and been parading had to keep their date intact. Because of the fact that, you know, like Pigeon Town, they have a club. Everywhere, they have clubs everywhere now. West Bay, everywhere have clubs. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. They are everywhere. There are so many clubs, like I'm telling you, there are so many now, there's not enough Sundays. You know, so that's why they needed something to protect them, to be sure that they would keep their date.
Right. And why do you think in that particular moment, you know, what was going on in society, you know, in the 70s and 80s, like, why were there women all of a sudden felt like, oh, we need to change this, we want to be on the street, we can do this, you know, we can do what the men do?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think which on the street within the men club?
Just the women wanted to be like your club, wanted to be parading on their own day and dancing on the street and not riding in cars anymore.
Well, I think what happened is that, like I said, the fun lovers, they were the first to hit the and to be honest with you, I don't think there was really a specific reason. I just think they just wanted to dance. Mm-hmm. They knew how to dance and they just wanted to dance. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and the men and the culture felt, okay, that's all right. Yeah. You know, because the second line is out here dancing the women, so why not have a women division? Right. You know, and then they do it, yeah. You know. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't really think it was, it wasn't anything, a competitiveness or to show. I think it was just that we want to dance, yeah. And the men, you know, encouraged that. Well, dance, let's dance. Mm-hmm. You know, because it wasn't a thing where they were challenging anyone. It wasn't that. That's right. Yeah,
yeah, that's
right.
good. I think it was I think it was you who might have said this, like back on one of these 1994 panels. I can't remember, but I think it was something about how like the the women's liberation movement kind of happened.
Yeah, well, and then but you got to understand, especially in the African American community, it wasn't about women being liberated. It was just that I think it wasn't that we're going to show them, and because as I told you, what's so unique about this culture is how we love each other, how we support each other. Case in point, I remember that same year, the Lady Money Wasters, when we had our first parade, we were late, we were behind in getting our stuff done. I remember that morning how all these men came to my house and helping us getting everything together for us to make it on the street. So that was a sense of togetherness. Even though you're going by yourself, we're still here. We're going to help you. We're going to help you get on the street by yourself. So I think it was, the different in liberate women during that time of that era. The women stand. We're going to stand for it. We're going to show you how it is. We're going to show you how it goes. But I don't think in the culture that's what we were doing. I think what we wanted to do, even though we were part of it, we still wanted to show you we could do it on our own too. In our own way. But we only did that one time.
Oh, that you paraded separately?
Yeah, we only did it one time. We did it one time, But also now, what happens with the Lady Buck Jumpers is that, like I told you, the men started. The men started the Lady Buck. The men started the original New Orleans Buck Jumpers, and then they recruited the women and the children. We had the Junior Buck Jumpers. We had 3 divisions, what happened is that a period of time, there were a couple of years that the men did not parade, but that meant nothing. The Lady Buck Jumpers still put it on the street, So, in a sense, if you look at it, what it did when the men did embrace and support the idea of women coming out, what it did, it gave us a sense of that you could take this, you could do this. You don't really need us, in a good way. In a good way, because to my knowledge, I don't know. Again, I could be wrong. I've never known where it was a competitive thing with the men and the women.
Right. Well, and it seems now too that the Lady Buck Jumpers are, there's such a force and known as these just like dancers that really, just don't hold back.
But but what happened with the Lady Buck Jumpers is that a lot of people don't know we had different layers. We had layers, and at one time we had as many as 30 women, but we had layers. And that was the uniqueness of the Lady Buck Jumpers, is that we had a group of dancers, we had a group of people that didn't dance. And that was layers. We had, like myself, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was in the Buck Jumpers. I think I was on the street maybe twice. After that, I got on the car because I told myself I don't want to dance anymore. But we had this group of dancers, and Linda and Barbara and Ida Mae and Kim, and I can call their name. It was a bunch of them. They were our dancers. And everybody could dance, but those of us, the older ones, we were recognizing that it wasn't about competing or trying to keep up with these younger women. We put them in the forefront because they're our dancers. They're going to dance. We're going to basically lay back some. You understand? And then eventually what we did, and we also allow that you come, you can be a buck jumper and don't be a dancer. They would ride on cars. So, like I said, we had layers.
That really speaks to what you were saying earlier about how there's more to the culture than a parade.
That's right.
Even within the parade, there's layers.
That's right.
Of participation.
That's right. And then also, we ran the Lady Buck Jumpers as, even though we were Social Employee Club, we ran it as a business. It was a business. And we had certain people that was a business element, like myself, the president, and some other people. We were the business element of the club. I was the PR person. We had business managers. We had our president. We had recording secretary. It was ran like a business. We had treasurers, financial secretaries. We ran it like a business. Every month when you came to this meeting, we had ledgers. Everybody got a copy, your name. You knew what everybody owed. You knew what everybody was paying. You knew that. Every 3 months we had what we call a checkup. You knew what you had to pay. And we also had a strict rule that if you were not paid up, you could not hit the street. I don't care who you are. You could not, you had to be paid up. You could not owe the organization 1 penny. It was business. It was nothing personal. It was because it costs to do this. So it was business. PR, I was a PR person. I was a person responsible to put that image out there, and that's what I did. I brought those ladies from, like they said, the back street culture to the front street, where I developed a relationship with the administration. Mark Morial, the mayor of New Orleans, was the mayor at that time, where I was able to negotiate where the Lady Buck Jump became his official group.
The mayor's official group?
That's right. And also, when the inauguration and everything, I was the one that negotiated with the culture economy department that during the inauguration you would have the Mighty Rock Indians and the social plan. Mark Morial is the one started that. Okay, and
in about what year?
That was in 80. That had to be in the 80. I'm have to look and see, 89, 88, 89, somewhere up in there. Okay. And every mayor thereafter, it was the same thing. Like whatever it was, I made sure. We worked with the sickle cell anemia, handshaking. We did a lot of stuff. We did a lot of things, to get that image out there. Also, what we did, we were a group to record with. What I mean with the fashions. I brought you some pictures. You know that.
Oh
right?
Yeah.
We set the tone to the street. In the organization, I was also given the responsibility to help to coordinate, get the things to help the group to coordinate, get together. Once we would choose a color, then we have to look at what we're going to do with this color, how we're going to do it, what we're going to wear. And we became our worst enemy because every year we had to go back to the drawing board. Now, what we're going to do now? We set the tone. We brought the fashion to the street. We brought mink and leather and all that stuff to the street that nobody had ever thought about doing. And I really feel that the original New Orleans Lady Buck Jumpers are the ones that created the tone of fashion for the ladies today of the street. I really believe that, and to be honest with you, a lot that I see now, I am so impressed. I'm really happy and I'm proud, but I'm also sad in some ways because I find, and I had to talk to a young man that has an organization, I'm not going to call the name, but I'm a little disheartened by some of the conduct that I witness out there with the actual clubs, not the second liners, not the people coming, but the actual members of the group. And the people.
In terms of what they're wearing, or in terms of, what do you mean by content?
Their conduct, the way they act, their conduct. Yeah. And some of the people that they're inviting to participate in their parade. Because like I told this young man, when you invite somebody to participate, they're representing you. I'm a little disappointed and disheartened about the behavior and the conduct, also some of the language that's coming from off the floats, because now you have the DJs with the mics and the music and the cursing and all that, because as I told you a little earlier, this is a family thing. This is a family thing. Everybody's coming. The old people, young people, the babies, your grandma, your auntie, your mama, all them coming out to see you, to support you. They don't need to hear all that stuff coming from you. You invest in too much, you do too much, and you look too much, and representing something that is sacred. And you can clown, but don't curse. Don't talk about body parts. Don't talk about what you're going to do with these body parts. And so I'm a little taken back by that, and I would like to see the ladies, and it's coming from a lot of ladies, and I would like to see that change. I would like to see them work on it, because it's taking something away from them. Because they spend a lot of money, and they look so nice. I'd be so proud. You don't know how proud I am. But when and they want to twerk and back that thing up. Come on a queen float. The queen is elegant. You're the queen. You royalty. Your maids and your attendants are the same. Act like that. You're not supposed to be doing that kind of stuff. You know, and I'm a little disappointed in that. And I really hope that, you know, and I've spoken to a couple of people, and it's to a point where I'm seriously thinking about maybe organizing a retreat or doing something and try to get some of these sisters in the room and talk about it and see what we can do about it. Because even though I do not participate, that does not mean I don't love my culture. And I am concerned about what happens and where it's going. You know, as I say, I'm an elder now. I'm a resource now, you know, but I'm just not going to throw my hands and say all is gone, just, you know. But, and a lot of people I've talked to, they agree, men and women. And
people? Do you think, is it a generational divide, or do young people you talk to also agree?
Both. It's yeah, you know, and a lot of young people, I think, is that they're kind of skeptical about addressing it because of the flack that they may receive. So, because sometimes it's more of the messenger, so it all depends. So I'm really thinking about trying to organize something, you know, with some groups. Because like I said, this is actually club members and participants, not the people coming, because you can't control the people coming to the second line. But you can control within your organization, right. You know. So I'm really, you know, because it's serious, you know. And also, I don't know if you know. Another question.
Oh, go ahead. Whatever you want to say.
To be honest with you, I want to share, and I've shared this with some other people. As you know, it's getting to the point now where. And I have to be very tactful the way I say things. I see that there are a lot of people from other persuasions more now coming to the parades than ever. At one time, you've seen a very few. Now they're everywhere. They're coming from everywhere of different persuasions in there.
Different races, people from
yes,
tourists,
yes, everywhere. Now, you heard that I said that this is our culture, it's uniquely ours. And I'm saying this, and I have no qualm, I have no problem, but some things I feel that should always stay ours. And I'm just going to give you some examples. The Vietnamese, they have their culture. It's their culture. I haven't seen any African American and the Vietnamese culture yet. Okay? Italians, they have their culture. They may invite you to come, but they're not a part of the culture. And I go on and on and on and on. The Jewish, this, that, blah, blah, blah. I go on and on and on. So I have concerns, and those are only mine. That don't mean that I'm right. But
it sounds like you sense that there's some power in that.
And I think that's right. I think that you could come, but I don't think that you should be a participant and part of a group, a second line group. That's all in my opinion. Because it is our culture, and I think, like I say, uniquely ours. can we have anything of our own other than negative stats? I just, and I'm not prejudiced, I'm not biased, I'm not racist, I'm none of that. I'm none of that. But when it comes to that, I think that should be something that should be us. And there are some clubs, they do not allow it. Okay? And I could call them by names. They do not allow it. And they've made it known, and I'm not gonna call names. And they basically feel the way I feel. So, and my thing is, well, no, I'm not gonna say that, no. But I have concerns about that.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask before, when you were talking about being a resource, I may not participate visibly, but you're so involved in these other ways. Your position at City Hall involves working with the clubs from inside the City Council.
No, not really.
Not really. Not in official capacity.
No, in my official capacity, I am Director of Constituent Services. That simply means one thing: I work for you. I work for everybody. I'm a problem solver, but that does not mean if clubs need me to assist in anything, I will do that. Because I can say to you that since I've been here, I never worked in city government until the person that I work for now was elected, and she asked me to come work for her, and I decided, because I've always been a community activist. I've been involved in the community for over 50 years, politically and otherwise. I've been instrumental in a lot of things, in education and parental involvement and stuff like that. But I never worked in city government until this person was elected, and she asked me to come work, and I came in. And there have been some time where the clubs have gotten some negative stuff where constituents called about the clubs, and I had to intercede. And also, in working for the person that I work for, I was able to educate her on the do's and don'ts. Also, specifically with the culture, because she thought that second line was Dad's funeral when they bury a dope deal, all that kind of stuff. She didn't know. She did not know. Okay, she did not know. So I was able to educate her, and then some other people on some things, So I'm able to intercede if I can, when I can.
Oh, there it is.
Is it on? Can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay.
Yeah, I did turn it on.
Why not just hold it then?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. Wait.
We're wrapping up here, anyhow. And the person you work for is Stacey Head.
Yeah.
Just to say that.
Right.
For the record.
One of the best people in the world. My baby. I love you, Stacey.
We've covered pretty much everything I wanted to ask about. I have this question. It might not make any sense, but if it does, I'd be curious in your response to it.
Right.
We talked about the different layers of participation in a parade, and also something that maybe we didn't talk about, but is true, is that dancing and brass band music happens in places other than a parade, right?
Yes.
So this is something that is pervasive and not just in this.
Yeah, because you know what? Let me say something. And to me, one of the worst scams that's on me, again, is to have second line lessons. There's no such thing. There is no right way or wrong way to second line dance, as they say it. To me, it's doing what you feel. It's what the music brings out of you. There's no special. Some people, like they say, footwork. Some people, that is the music moving through them. The music, as the music moves and bubbles through the street and bubbles through it gives you in your body a sense of feeling that brings your mind, your brain, and your heart, and your feet, and your nerve to do a certain thing. So there is no right way or wrong way. So I can't understand how you're going to teach. You can't teach anybody how to. You just do what you feel what the music make you feel. Some people, the music make them, some people, the music make them, it's all in the music, in the beat of the music that vibrates through you. You know? Some people like to move to the drums. Some people like to move to the brass. Some people like to move ding, ding, cowbell, ding, 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 ding. So how can you teach somebody how to second line? It's no such thing. It's no such thing. You know, and I wanted to say when I was talking about being a culture bearer and how important it is for the transition, I'm a mother of 4 children and 4 grandchildren. What I did with my 4 children, I afforded them the opportunity to be involved in the culture. And my reasons for that was to expose them to the culture. And what happened is that only 2 of them decided that they wanted to be a part, and that was fine. But that did not mean I didn't expose them or teach them, and no. And through that, I have 4 grandchildren. And out of my 4 grandchildren, only one of my grandchildren decided, and he is a musician. In fact, he has his own brass band. His brass band is called the Sons of Jazz. He's a tuba player. And
what is his name?
His name is Michael Brooks Jr. And to me, I tell him all the time, I say, you're the spirit. He has the spirit of his grandfather. He plays a tuba, and sometimes his gestures and the way he moves, the way he plays the instrument, sometimes I really think, I say, boy, you got the spirit of tuba in you. So what I'm saying is that what I would wish for my African American sisters and brothers and families, that you afford your children the opportunity to make a choice. And for so long, like I said, people thought it was degrading. Oh, you don't want to do that. That the more common people. It's not that. Educated, fine, hardworking, refined people, that just have a deep love for its culture and want to participate. And like that curriculum in the schools would give them a choice too, because it would arouse their. Because one of my grandsons said he wanted to be, I can't remember now, and the reason why he said he wanted to be this because he saw, I can't remember, he saw this movie with Cuba Gooding about the deep sea diver, something it was, yeah, and that's why he wanted to do that. So I'm just saying that aroused his curiosity. One of my granddaughters wanted to be a meteorologist because of the weatherman. Okay, so, and then after she saw she had to take too many math and science courses, she changed her mind. I don't want that. So all I'm saying is that I want everybody to understand, whoever sees this, whoever has the opportunity to hear this, that the culture that we have here, the culture of second line, the culture of brass band, it is nothing to take lightly. It is a very treasured culture. And I get emotional because of the love that people would only know that it is a part of us, that those of us who may not have the opportunity to ever travel to our motherland, it's a part that was brought there to instill in us. Because if you look at you say you're a dance major, you look at some African dance and compare it to some second line. So connected. And, and even if you choose not to participate, at least become knowledgeable of it, that you will have a better appreciation of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the dancing, this is my last question I have written.
Okay.
But this is the question I said might sound a little strange. The way you described the dancing was really moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, is dancing of the social aid part, the pleasure part, or both?
It's all wrapped up together. It's all in one. Sometimes we sashay. That's sashay, that's benevolence. You sashay in the church. You sashay. Okay? You sashay in African dance. You sashay. It's all wrapped up into one. It's all in the one.
And it's sacred.
The dancing it's about It's about the beat of the music that's tapping and tipping on your heart. It's the beat of the music that's tapping and tipping on your brain. It's the beat of the tapping and tipping of the ambiance of a taste that's in your mouth, of a good dish that you just ate. That's what it's all about. Okay?
I think it's beautiful to end on, unless you'd like to say anything else.
No, and I'm truly grateful and honored to contribute.
It's my honor to be
Thank you.
a witness to your memory and the history that you carry.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
And to collect this as a way.
And as I,
future generations.
and my time for transition will come, and I would hope that when I transition, that people would understand that this is true value, not face value, of how I love my culture. Okay.
Thank you for everything.
Thank
you've
you.
done.
Thank you.